Joining us now with reaction, Fox News contributor Joey Jones, House Armed Services Committee Congressman Michael Waltz, and Fox News contributor Joe Concha. Thank you all for being here tonight. Joey Jones, let me start with you. You combine the anniversary of the 13, you combine a statement that doesn't include names of them, you combine 9/11 and not commemorating it where it happened alongside a plea deal. What are people to make of how this administration views our military and warfighters?
Yeah, I think sometimes when people tell you how they feel, you should believe them. And that's exactly what Joe Biden's done. Listen, when they're on the tarmac greeting the bodies and he's looking at his watch to see what time it is, he doesn't understand the gravity of what's happened. He does not understand, as the President of the United States, what laying your life down for this country means. We see it when he pretends that his son died in Iraq. We see it when he pretends that a house fire is the same thing, or a kitchen fire is the same thing as losing your home and your family. He doesn't get it. And after 50 years of being in politics, we can't teach it to him.
No, of course not. And we don't know what he actually knows at this point. Congressman, Colonel Waltz, you've done so much for those families and those trying to flee Afghanistan, those who were there to the bitter end, those who lost their lives in those Gold Star families. You've had hearings with them recently, private conversations with them. How do they, when they see a statement like that come out in the middle of the night, how are they to believe they'll ever get answers?
Yeah, thanks, Pete. I mean, these families, of course, are grieving, but they are also angry. They are disgusted. They're furious. They are still waiting for clear answers on how their loved ones died exactly. They were briefed one thing, but then they're hearing conflicting reports from the survivors of the Abbey Gate bombing. Some of them still don't have all of the personal effects. For example, the SIM cards from their phones, their final photos. But the true insult to injury is from the commander-in-chief himself when he lied to some of them at Dover and said he understood how they felt because Bo came home in a flag-draped casket when they knew that he died of cancer. But look, we were able to spend a great evening last night with them and President Trump. He spent 4 hours with them. He had a round table. He heard their stories. He promised them that when he gets in office, he will release everything, the tapes, the correspondence, the total lack of planning, all of it, because they deserve transparency. But I got to tell you, only him by the end of the night and a beautiful dinner could have them laughing. Several of the couples got up and danced together. They cried on each other's shoulders, but they came up to me and said this was the most meaningful thing that they've had in the last 2 years. Wow. Just to have someone like the president lend a listening ear and promise them transparency, and they believe he'll deliver on that promise.
Man, that's all they want. I get chills hearing that. Joe Biden won't spend a minute with them, won't give them any answers. Donald Trump spends 4 hours with them with Bedminster. All you want to do is be heard, believe that someone understands your grief, honors that sacrifice, and then will demand accountability and transparency. That's amazing. Amazing what a real commander-in-chief should be doing. Joe,
they just want
they
the
get a
truth,
pass.
Pete.
This administration.
That's it.
Yeah, well, they just that's all they deserve. And the truth about before, during, and after, every aspect of it, there's been no truth for them. Joe, you make a living looking at the media, and here we are talking about this 2 years later. Here we are talking about the 9/11 plea deal. Here we are talking about the revelations that climate policy was being pushed inside the Pentagon at the same moment we were abandoning Afghanistan. Yet there's seemingly almost no interest from anybody else on this story.
We're not seeing any coverage, really, Pete, as far as the 2-year anniversary of Afghanistan. In terms of Maui, in terms of reporters going there to cover that story where hundreds of people are still missing in what could be one of the worst fires, if not the worst fire in U.S. history. And it's like, well, we can't send any resources there because that may make Joe Biden look bad. It's amazing here, by the way, that we have a president in Joe Biden rhetorically twerking, doing an end zone dance 2 years later over his handling of this chaotic, fatal withdrawal out of Afghanistan, saying, oh, well, it was one of the best airlifts in history. No, this is the same commander-in-chief that decided it was a good idea to allow the Taliban, Pete, to handle security around that airport at Kabul as far as getting Americans out. And things were so desperate, and you showed the video already, Afghans literally clinging to the wings of planes and hoping to get out, only to fall to their own deaths. And you look at the polls. polls, and it shows that despite the media coverage or lack of media coverage, it shows that 20% of so Americans approve of Joe Biden's handling of the withdrawal out of Afghanistan. This is the same president that promised that the Afghan military trained by the U.S. to the tunes of billions of dollars, tens of billions, would be able to hold off the Taliban, and they ended up taking Kabul in the time it takes to deliver a pizza. So when you look at the downfall of the Biden presidency, it happened here 2 years ago. Polls went south at this moment, and people do not trust this commander-in-chief in terms of his instincts, in terms of his ability to carry out this stuff, because obviously this was huge in terms of negative. Yeah.
Absolutely. Real quick, Joey, and then we'll get to you, Colonel Waltz, one more time. 9/11, it's not trivial, even though it's 22 years later, to skip over that or make it an afterthought. Just speak to the reverberation of it becoming maybe a second-tier memorialization.
Yeah, we don't have an opportunity for that, Pete. We're losing patriotism in our kids. We can't lose it in ourselves. Those of us that were unlucky or lucky enough, you and I listened to Marcus Luttrell speak the other night, and the words he said about how you temper steel and how our generation came of age as 9/11 happened, as an economic crisis happened. As Americans, even if our commander-in-chief can't respect it, we need to remember it. Not just the people that died that day, but the last 20 years, and how that was the last time we felt like a unified country. We have to memorialize that and understand we don't need that to love our country.
Commanders need to lead on that. Real quick, Colonel, does it surprise you that climate policy was all a buzz in the Pentagon as we are retreating from Afghanistan?
No, because that's the agenda that Biden's politicals are pushing. That's why you're seeing things like electric tanks and putting our bases on solar panels take top priority, right? But I got to tell you, at the same time, the intelligence community right now is blinking red. ISIS and al-Qaeda are staging a comeback. They've realized Osama bin Laden's dream in having a full caliphate with the powers of a state and billions of U.S.-made equipment. And what pisses me off and these families off is that future American soldiers are going to have to go back to deal with it. And rather than, as one Gold Star father said, the commander-in-chief being a man, saying we made mistakes, taking responsibility, and here's how we're never going to let this happen again, you see them politically patting themselves on the back. And that's the knife in their heart, is knowing that future Marines, future special operators, and Green Berets are going to have to deal with this, because the terrorists didn't get the memo. They didn't get the email that Biden said the war on terror is over. They still have every intent to hit us again.
Always seems to go to the junk mail. Joey Jones, Congressman Waltz, Joe Concha, God bless you all. Thank you for your insight tonight.